Alright, so we are now officially done another week of Guild Quest, and with that, we're going to be breaking down the upcoming Guild Quest week. In this case, for Phase 1, we are going against once more Arrancars. This time, we have to bring ranged characters. This, for the most part, I would like to think is going to be quite the easy week. And then Phase 2, we'll be going against captains, and in this case, we want to bring ranged characters. Once more, shouldn't be the most difficult week out there. I can already know right from the get-go, one of the go-tos for a lot of people are going to be 6th Anniversary Aizen, and he's been out in the game for the last 2 years, been in a lot of banners. He might be the key to beating this particular quest. But let's have a look at some of the characters we can bring for both Phase 1 and also Phase 2. So first up, we have the Ranged Arrancar Guild Quest. Now, right from the get-go, one of your best characters, if not your best lead for this particular week, is going to be 7th Anniversary Ichigo. He was already really good in the Ranged Swiper Guild Quest, and you know it's going to be the exact same for the Ranged Arrancar Guild Quest. Not only does he have complete stats immunity, allowing you to share that to your entire team, so in case you are using 2 side characters that don't have burn immunity, Ichigo in particular will give that to them, but he himself also does have a high damage output, especially when he does inflict a status ailment. He has a mobilizer and innovator, so there's a good chance he is going to inflict a status ailment regardless if you're hitting the enemy or not. He has a tracking vortex that's very key for beating these particular quests, because it does provide some really good crowd control, and in this case too, even if the SA2 vortex isn't off, if you paralyze the enemy, you're going to keep your team safe for around 7 or so seconds. Of course, in combination with that too, Ichigo's Sobon does hit quite hard too, so if you do have this character duped out, let's say 5 out of 5 for example, his Sobon will be doing a respectable amount of damage and will be really good for just nuking through one particular boss. But regardless if you have dupes of the character or not, he's still probably going to be your best lead just for the crowd control, the damage output, and also the shared complete stats immunity. I also do want to talk about this character in particular. She is scheduled to come out on Tuesday, so you will have time to test her in the Arranged Arrancar Guild Quest. She's the newest character, that being Parasol Rukia. Her damage output is very similar to Kyuuge, and we know Kyuuge at 1 out of 5 can beat the melee Arrancar Guild Quest by himself. So it's reasonable to assume that Rukia might be able to do the same, but keep in mind if you are using Rukia in the Arrancar Guild Quest, her SA2 in particular is classed as a melee attack, so therefore it's not actually doing any damage. Having said that, if you have no other better option, and even if you have better options, she still might be good for this particular guild quest, even though she isn't doing damage on that SA2. Like, her damage output, especially on the SA1 and 3, is going to be really high. So this is more so a character we have to wait to see how she is going to perform, whether they do fix or don't fix her SA2 doing damage or not. Her increased chance to freeze, the fact that she can freeze does make her a pretty good character that you can use in this particular quest. Although you do have to be a tad bit careful, she isn't actually immune to burn, so you want to make sure she does have that immunity. And in all honesty, that might be your best lead option. Like, there isn't that many other great characters that you can use as a lead that will be providing crowd control and also some consistency, right? And to be honest, that's potentially okay, because when it comes to the ranged Arrancar killers, you have access to some of the best supports out there. In this case, one of your best characters to use without a doubt, potentially can even use him as a main, is 1000-Year Blood Aizen. I was really looking forward to see how he is going to perform here. I've been using him outside of the ranged Arrancar week, so you know he's going to be really good in this particular guild quest where he's now actually doing damage. But in this case, he is immune to fire. He obviously has a very high damage output. He has the gauge effect too, so when that does go off, he's even doing more damage. He has an increased chance to inflict stats ailments, at least against speed enemies, so when the speed boss does come around and he hits the enemy like a few times, he's probably going to get the attack boost, and he is going to apply weakening. Now, lucky for him, since the only stats ailment he does apply is weakening, it's going to wear off after like 2 seconds. So if he does inflict the stats ailment, it won't punish your team. Let's say you are using 7th Anniversary Ichigo as a main. You know, you want to inflict stats ailments too. So if Aizen does it first, that's fine, because after 2 seconds, it's going to wear off, and then you can inflict a stats ailment, and then both you and Aizen can have your attack/SP boost. Because yeah, if you don't know, he does have the attack boost. One of the only few characters in the game to have it. He can reliably get it too, but then again, he also does have a boost and also barrier. So he allows your team to do more damage, himself to do more damage, and he's also given the +5 barrier for himself and the +3 barrier for your teammates. Really important, especially if you aren't using 7th Anniversary Ichigo as a main. The extra hit protection is going to come really handy with this particular character. By far, going to be one of your best sides for this particular week. Potentially, again, even might be a good main. We might have to try that tomorrow morning when we do go live, when the guild quest does go live. Another great Nat character to go alongside that is, of course, going to be Rukia. Now, in her case, she, once more, is also not immune to fire, so keep that in mind. Her damage output isn't as high as Aizen's, but it's still really good, and the follow-up skill is definitely going to be really good there for any enemies that you do potentially knock over with your strong attacks. Now, what makes her, in a way, better than Aizen is the fact that she does have the booster boost. So Aizen's boost is providing your team with a 33% attack focus increase, whereas Rukia's boost is a 43% attack and focus increase. defense too, but let's just focus on the damage output. So you can actually get away using her and Aizen in the same team, but the problem is that you need to make sure that Rukia gets the boost after Aizen, and there's no guarantee that's going to happen. For those that don't know, if Aizen uses his boost after Rukia's, it negates her 43% attack increase, and it goes down to 33%. Even having said that though, like regardless if Rukia's boost goes off or not, she still has a good damage output, and paired with Aizen, for example, is going to be really good. Since she is immune to freeze and not burn, using Anniversary Ichigo as a main is going to be even better here, because it will give her that immunity. So I guess the most conventional team, the best team you can probably make that a lot of people will try to make, is Ichigo as the main, Aizen as a side as your boost or damage dealer, could double down as both, and then also Rukia again as your boost or damage dealer, also again can double down as both. You just gotta make sure if you are using Rukia or Aizen, one of them wants to use recharge links to easily stack that SA2. Now other than that, when it comes to your normal attack damage options, you of course do have the, funny enough, we have this Noitora who we kind of trashed on upon release. Still kind of a weird one because he's immune to freeze, but his damage output is high. He's a Guild Quest character. He wants to inflict weakening. He does more damage to weakened enemies. If you have him, he's not a bad character to use for this particular Guild Quest. Same can be said for Kugo. Obviously, his damage output is respectable. Does have follow-up too. Could be pretty good in Guild Quest. Will work as a pretty good side if you do need that extra normal attack damage support. In this case though, not immune to stat elements, so ideally you do want to use 7th Anniversary Ichigo alongside this character. And then of course you've got some older character options that are definitely usable if you have dupes of them. In this case we have the Desert Society Ichigo, we have Fierce Battle Kisuke, and then we also have the newly resurrected Lidine. I guess you also have Kaname too, but his damage output isn't anything too high. I believe he only has like a 20% bruiser. Yeah, just 20%. It's not the highest, but again, you could potentially get away using this character. So we've already established that 7th Anniversary Ichigo is going to be your best lead. Now, you can get away without using him. For example, and keep in mind, it's not going to be nearly as good. You could potentially use someone like Azashiro. You could use someone like Mana Yumachika. This Rangiku could potentially even Don Kanoji. I might have to try that. But it seemed like that you're going to have the extra support on your sides to compensate. And again, ideally you would want to have some type of barrier character. In that case, Thousand Year Blood or Aizen. So for example, if you aren't choosing 7th Anniversary Ichigo in this quest, having a barrier character like Aizen to help out your team because of the lack of crowd control is going to also be very important. And then that leads us into the Ranged Captain Guild quest, where to be honest, there's not that many great characters to use here, but there are still some really good ones that if you have them, you can definitely make it work. So for starters, let's look at your best leads. We have to wait and see how she does play out here, but Bambietta is going to be really good here. We knew she was always going to be really good in Guild Quests. She was a more traditional nuker when it came to the hard difficulty Guild Quest, and unfortunately they have killed Nukin, but her damage output is still going to be really good here, especially when you consider the fact that she does have the Barrage Attack SA2. She is immune to paralysis, so that's going to be really good here. And what we did see with Halloween Toshiro, another character with the Barrage Attack, is that it does work as a somewhat mini vortex. The enemies, the bosses in particular, do get trapped into it. So if you do use your SA2, as long as there's no one beside you that's going to hit you mid-attack, you will actually get all the hits off, and of course you will be doing a lot of damage. In her case, you know, she has a great damage output, more damage to burning enemies, has an increased chance to inflict stat elements, has Frenzy +2, has the SP boost, weakened defense. Her Soul Bomb is also going to hit really hard here. Your Soul Bomb is pretty much going to be a very easy, like potentially 5-second clear on one particular wave. Bambi is probably going to be your best lead if you have her. If you don't, of course, as already mentioned, we have good or reliable 6th Anniversary Aizen. Same reason why you want to use 7th Anniversary Ichigo is probably the same reason why you want to use him. SA2 provides the crowd control. He's immune to paralysis, and he'll just keep the enemies in place for your 2 side characters to therefore then do damage. Aizen's damage output is still good, don't get me wrong. It's Frenzy +2, 20% more damage at full stamina. But obviously, it's not super high compared to what we have been getting nowadays. But still a great character to use here. Even if, hypothetically, you are using someone like Bambietta as your main, which is what I'm going to be doing, using Aizen as a side with 4 recharge links might not even be a bad idea to do, because he is going to use that SA2, he is going to do damage, and of course, he is providing that great crowd control. And ironically, another pretty good character to use here is going to be 1000 Year Blood or Uryu. In his case, his damage output isn't anything super crazy high. He's more so going to be a character I would really use if you have him duped out, or if you do for some reason lack 6th Anniversary Aizen. But again, the main reason why you're using him is for the SA2. It is a tracking vortex, provides great crowd control, can be really good for keeping the enemies in place so your two side characters can do all the damage and do all the work. He does have killer, and he does have a pretty hard-hitting summon since he does have bombardment +1. So a perfectly usable character in this quest if you are an Uryu fan, or if you just like to use this character in Guild Quest content. He's actually more usable in the very hard Guild Quest than the hard difficulty Guild Quest, I will say. And that mainly comes down to his SA2. Now, those are going to be your main 3 leads, right? Bambietta, Uryu, or 6th Anniversary Aizen. Other than that, again, it's basically the top row they have to work with. Gin is going to be a really good normal attack damage character here. He's a ranged knight character, he's immune to status summons, does more damage to poison enemies, and also does do more damage in guild quests. More range damage and also more killer damage. So if you need that normal attack damage support for this week, Gin's going to be really good here. He's a premium character, he's been out in the game for some time, you might have the character, you might have him duped out. If you do, it's worth investing into him. Likewise, another great character, Segunda Etapa Okiura, Captain Killer, ranged, immune to paralysis, has an even higher damage output which once more gets further increased into the Guild Quest game modes, but in each case he is providing your team with a 5-hit barrier for himself, 3-hit for your teammates, and also a debuff. The debuffs are good in this mode since you are spending more time on any given boss. He can apply weakening, so if he does apply weakening, you're doing more damage for around 2 or so seconds. If not, it wears off, and let's say you're using Bambietta, for example, you can then inflict a status of it and get that SP boost. It doesn't hurt your main lead with Bambietta, for example, but in his case, again, just another very solid NAD character that you can use for this week. And then, unironically, we also have access to a character like this, the Bond TLA version of Orihime. She's not bad here. Honestly, she's not. Her damage output is basically Flurry +1 with a 50% bruiser. I mean, you know, compared to Gin and also Ogura, it's nothing compared to them, but it's still really good. Especially because she's been out in the game for like 5 years. She's resurrectable. You might have her. If you've been playing this game for a long time, you might have this character 5-5. I know I do. And she is unironically a good option for this particular week. And it gets even better because she has the barriers. And she has multi-barriers. So, like, if you're not using Okiura and you need that extra support, the barriers, for example, unironically, this character is a good option to use here. And I would actually recommend using her if you have no other better option. Or if you need the support, definitely do consider using her. And with that, I was going to say that's all the best character you can use here, but another good resurrectable character that saw a lot of usage in the ranged Hollow Guild Quest is also equally good here in the ranged Captain Guild Quest, and that is Shuhei. Likewise to Orihime, he got a resurrection, he has Flurry +1 with a 40% bruiser, has weakened defense on the summon, but that probably doesn't matter. He can apply paralysis on his SA1, that might help you out for a tad bit. He does have debilitator, but yeah, just again a character that's been out in the game for like 5 years now, even longer than Orihime, is resurrectable. I know a lot of people used him and found success in the ranged Hollow Guild Quest, and I think you'd probably see the same success in the ranged Captain Guild Quest. So those are probably the best characters you can use here. Anyone else I really don't think is worth talking about or worth bringing, but it is important to keep in mind here too, is that if you are using a normal attack damage character like Rukia, Gin, Shuhei, or even this Okiura, ideally you do also want to have some type of booster with you. So there's a few teams that you can make, right? You could go with Bambietta, Aizen, and then maybe just a random team booster like Orihime, someone that doesn't have killer. You could go with Bambietta, Okiura, and then another team booster. Likewise, you could switch out that Okiura with Orihime or Gin, even Shuhei. Those are all very viable options here. If you are using a normal attack damage character, ideally you do want to have some type of team booster because you need as much attack stat as possible, and the 33%, maybe even 43% extra attack that you can get is actually really important. And when it comes to range Captain Killers, there are no team boosters. We have a debuffer and we have some good barrier characters, but we have no team booster. So as always, another example, another week where Maid Orihime is also going to be pretty good here. So with that said, lads, that was the upcoming Guild Quest broken down. I think the ranged Arrancar Guild Quest is definitely going to be on the easier side. The ranged Captain Guild Quest, depending on the type of player you are, might also be pretty easy. I know a lot of people do have 6th Anniversary Aizen. He's been in some of the better banners of the year over the last basically 2 years, right? So you can definitely get away using him as a main. He should be relatively good. And as we already broke down, there's some other good characters you can use as NAD characters that have also been in the game for a couple years now. Again, as always, we are going to be live when the Guild Quest does come out tomorrow at 3 p.m. my time. Hope to see you lads there. And if you have any questions or need help, feel free to ask that in the comment section or when we are live doing the Guild Quest myself. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time. Take care and peace.